Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cashflow Project podcast. I'm your host, Steve Garros with Tri-City Equity Group. Today, we've got Stuart Heath on the show. Stuart has founded the Harvard Grace Corporation in 2010, which has since expanded to Harvard Grace Capital, which we're going to dive in a little bit here in the show and talk about what the capital side of the business does and kind of what kind of investments that they're looking at. You might be surprised as to what they're investing in. So we will definitely dive in there. But this company, as an overview, they provide services to C-level executives, basically like CFO services, fractional CFO services. And he's previously held positions as COO and CFO for companies in retail, real estate, manufacturing, corporate services, entertainment, digital media. So he's definitely got a wide breadth of skill and exposure to different market segments. He's earned a CPA license in 1987. So definitely been going a long time. And I'm no doubt has stories in regards to that side of the business. And I know I'll speak for me personally. That's always an area of the house, just on my personal stuff, that always a struggle. But we're excited to pick his brain and see what kind of insight he can have to offer. Stuart, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Appreciate being here.
Yeah.
I'd be honest.
No, absolutely.
Sharing me with your audience.
Absolutely. No, we really appreciate you taking your time out of your day and hopping on with us and providing value. So, but yeah, for those of us who might not be familiar with you and kind of your background, your story, give us a little bit of a snapshot. How'd you get going in the business? How'd you get into real estate? But of course, did you play with an abacus as a kid and you're just like, you know what, numbers is my game, and just always knew you were going to be in finance, or what?
Yeah, it is kind of funny. As a young child, I remember when I was sitting around the table and my parents were going over this list of assets that my mother had inherited from her father. And I was just sort of reading, and it was my grandfather had been into timber in central Alabama. And I'm just like, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of acres and had timber on it that my mother had actually planted as a child. Timber is not a get rich quick scheme. And I got kind of fascinated with it. And then, of course, I grew up and went to college and came out and just sort of in my infancy as a career. So I got out of college in 1985, and the very next year, Congress passed the Tax Reform Act of 1986, which was devastating to the investment real estate community. And what did I know? I was just working for a CPA firm doing what I'm told. And I remember over the next few years, and we would go to meetings with bankers and stuff, and bankers would sit there and say, so we don't lend on real estate anymore. We think it's far too risky. And now I think back, so you'd rather have collateral that has wheels and can be in the lower 49, anywhere you want. And of course that changed fairly quickly, and quickly in business is 3 to 4 years. But I just sort of grew up with this attitude that real estate was bad. Real estate was bad. So after 3 or 4 years, I left this major accounting firm because I figured I had learned all I needed to know at the age of 25 and started my own firm. And it really kind of picked up a lot of small business clients, many of whom were in the real estate business. Maybe they were realtors, maybe they were home builders, but they were all doing fixes and flips and fixes and holes and fixes. And they were making good money. Nobody was retiring after one deal, but they were making good money. And in one particular, I call her my business mom. She was in the hole to the IRS like $100,000, which in 1989, that was a lot of money. And so she went and got a real estate license and just worked it, and they did flips and flips. And in about 5 years, dug out of that hole and was actually on top of the, and she's still my client today. And she's sort of an inspiration. And so one day, about probably the year 2000 or so, it's the middle of tax season, and I'm taking a break at 2 a.m. and I'm watching Carlton Sheets infomercial on TV. And sure enough, I ordered his program. It was $149 money back guarantee. And I said, I can do this. This makes some sense. And I'd been seeing all these other clients I have make money with real estate. And within 90 days or so, I bought my first duplex, and then I rapidly accelerated. And 4 or 5 years later, I had a couple of hundred personal rental units, and in managing them myself while still running a CPA practice. And then I started building and developing and all this kind of stuff. Had a bit of a slowdown reversal in 2009, as many of us did, but I never really blamed real estate for that. I mean, to me, it's the original asset, and if you do it properly, it's a great place to store your wealth. It's leverageable, and it's an asset class that's attainable by almost anyone, which you can't say about necessarily other asset classes. That's what drew me to it, sort of came to it naturally, and watching others. And I have to say, I absolutely love it. It's fun most of the time.
Well, that's a pretty huge 180, especially in terms of just kind of mindset shift. I mean, obviously there's a lot to unpack there, but probably want to dwell there just for a minute, because for one, kudos to you for being willing to kind of adjust your mindset and jumping in with both feet. Sounds like, I mean, taking off that quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I meet so many people in the industry who, hey, for years, I feel like this is a common story, but not common enough, where you have eventual investors, but they may work in one of these ancillary services. They work in finance, they work in banking, or as a contractor, or in your case, right, as a CPA. And it's like, well, look, you're handling all of the kind of, you've got a great insight into the numbers. Let's say, okay, you're a banker, or like that. You see the intimate details, like the finances or they're true numbers. People can hide a lot of stuff.
Right.
But it's like, okay, well, hey, I'm versus just saying, well, that's for those people. They can handle their numbers and cool. Yeah, I'm going to do your taxes, and we'll kind of crunch all the numbers and make sure that everything lines up. But no, you were like, okay, well, hey, look, wow. Okay. So these people can make good money, and thank you to Real Estate Mom for helping kind of shift things for you, because what it sounds like, it's like, wow, you didn't grow up necessarily thinking like that real estate was a good thing.
Yeah.
Right. And
my parents were never into it. You observe and you learn from other people in almost every facet of life. And I learned how to do this from other people.
Yeah. Even just that one time, I mean, obviously Carlton Sheets is kind of the godfather here, but maybe some of our listeners familiar with him, of course, but maybe others not so much.
Right.
He's definitely one of the OG guys in the space in terms of throwing the whole concept of making, like, popularizing, let's say, real estate investing, like you said.
Don't run it down. Run it down.
Yeah. Real estate investing has been around since time immemorial, right? But in terms of getting creative, getting in there, kind of mixing it up, I mean, he was one of the originals, right? The OG guys. How difficult was that for you? Because it sounds like, I said, you got started pretty quick. Did you just, in terms of changing your mindset, because you went from a place of not believing, okay, hey, fully believing in real estate, let's say, to like fully embracing it, racking up hundreds of units. Again, that's a pretty radical shift. Was it
well, I've always been an all-in kind of a guy. And my ultimate goal, when I was sitting there on the couch at 2 a.m. watching Carlton Sheets, I mean, I was trying to figure out, I'm making good money. I was having a nice living, but I knew I was not building wealth.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always sort of been in a hurry and feeling like I'm behind. So I jump in with both feet, because, all right, I got to catch up. I got to start building wealth and things of that nature. And if one rental property is good, why isn't 20 even better? So, I mean, that's why multifamily is a popular asset class, because of the multiple units involved in it. It's a multiplier. So, yeah, I've just always been aggressive that way.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, again, there's a lot of people, of course, that are out there that become accidental landlords. And so it's like, oh, you know what? I inherited maybe grandma's house or grandparents' house, or have got a cousin or somebody who's struggling and they needed to sell their house. And so I thought, okay, well, I don't want to keep it in the family. And so they're kind of accidental landlords. They get one or two doors. But then, of course, that becomes stressful, because it's like, okay, well, I'm managing a couple. Hey, you've got some vacancy or something. You got somebody that skips rent and skips town. And it's like, or the damage to property on the way out. Gosh, that can really hurt you. That wipes out your cash flow for an extended period.
Yep.
Hey, well, you had a water heater leak, and now that damaged the unit, and I got to change out all the flooring and do new paint remediation, all that kind of stuff. It's like, gosh, how many years am I gonna have to rent that thing out if I was only cash flowing, let's say, $100 for that one every month, right? And so, like, that's a part of why, of course, we like multifamily, because it's scalable. but you would have had firsthand experience in managing, let's say, hundreds of doors, let's say roofs. I always like to think of that because you can think of how expensive a roof can be for those of our listeners only doing, let's say, residential at this point. I'll meet people who are like, well, gosh, I can do commercial because I've just got these 100 residential doors, but I can't do commercial like you or like you guys. And I'm like, you're doing a lot of work. You've got 100 single family doors. Did you find that to be the case? I know obviously you switch gears and now that's not necessarily your focus, but.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a control freak. So I tended to manage, and I had a property manager for the first couple of years. And I would scrutinize that report every month and was like, why is this person still here? And so I came up with my rule that you can manage the property or you can manage the manager. And it's actually, well, it's just a lot more direct to manage the property. And so, and a lot of people don't want to do that. And I get that. But I'm wired that way. But when I had 200 personal units, I did finally declare that that's the nearest thing to hell on earth as anything that I can imagine, because people aren't necessarily rational when it comes to where they live. And frankly, a lot of those units were in the wrong income segment. I thought blue collar housing was a safe place to be, but as it turns out, it wasn't. And 90% of the people were great. 10% are nuts, and they can ruin your week. So when I got a chance, I did pivot, and I do like commercial. Yeah, I am a CPA, and when you're dealing with commercial and you're dealing with people's business offices or the retail store, you're dealing with business people. That's a lot more comfortable for me. There are some trade-offs. Your vacancy periods will tend to be a lot longer. Maybe 6 months, maybe longer. But once you lock them in, I mean, you're locking in for 5 or 10 years. And you need to build escalations and that kind of stuff. So the math is very close to being the same, but the math is much more attractive on the commercial realm. And businesses tend to be less price sensitive, less cost sensitive. So there's a little bit more profit that you can pick up just by providing some basic services. So that's why I pivoted from residential over to commercial. But back to your comment, can regular people do that? Absolutely. There's all kinds of small commercial properties. You can pick up a Family Dollar or a Dollar General single tenant lease. And you could pick up a small office condo. You can just go buy the condo and then rent that out to somebody. And that puts you in the commercial realm. So there's any number of possibilities to get involved in commercial real estate.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, I think it's usually really intimidating for most people. And I totally get it. Everybody can kind of wrap their heads around, well, I grew up in a house or my family owned a residential single family, but very few own commercial space or have control over commercial space. And so I think there's usually kind of a self-limiting mental factor there where it's like, I can't do that because it's so foreign compared to just what they're used to, just paying a traditional mortgage. Obviously the debt is
totally understand that. It's not that much different.
Speaking from, that's coming from somebody who's obviously taking it as far as you would typically ever want to go on in terms of single family, having a couple hundred doors, it's quite a bit. And to step over to the other side of the fence and Stuart's obviously had a lot of experience here on the switching gears and making it to the commercial space. Yeah, that's what I've experienced. It's just easier to manage. It's just easier to your point, when you're dealing B2B, right? They've got so much more invested into it than that initial upfront security deposit in first and last months or whatever. So it's going to be really hard to walk away from a good lease as long as their underlying business, it's solid and some kind of content. I'm sure you have your own kind of internal markers for screening and all that kind of even for commercial tenants. I mean, you would, just like anybody else, guys, you're going to do screening for commercial tenants, just like you would, let's say, residential tenants. Like there's more, the numbers are bigger, but you want to look at them in a similar fashion. Hey, how strong is your business? And maybe you can share some insight on that.
Yeah, the key to residential and commercial is tenant selection. And I like to remind my investors that whatever business my tenant is in, I'm in it. If somebody was, well, I was wrong. I had a bad first impression. I just rented to a business that's doing hot yoga, and I'm thinking, and I'm like, yeah. Then I looked at the numbers and like, you're in. It's a good business. I mean, just because wasn't necessarily a customer, but fit in that location, and it was, they're great tenants. So.
Yeah, give us some insight too. Kind of pull back the curtain just a little bit on that, like that side of that thing. Like, and for one, when we were kind of talking off camera, it's like, well, did you invest in retail? And I'm like, well, didn't you get the news? Or I thought retail was dead. It's like,
retail died in 2020. Remember?
Yeah, this is so important to remember too, guys. Like, you're listening to any of the big box news sources, right? Like any of that, like they're just gonna blanket statement, hey, real estate, as if there's just one real estate market. Like real estate is hyper local. Like Stuart and I are thousands of miles apart, and stuff that works here in Hawaii may not work where he's at in Tennessee. So you've got to know your local market, understand like what's happening, or whether that be close to you or wherever you're investing in, right? And you could be investing out of state too. It doesn't matter. You have to understand, like, there's no one market, right? So understand your market and what you're trying to do. So yeah, fill us in. Like, how would you give us some tips on, hey, how do you look for, let's say, retail deals, or how are you looking for retail? Because obviously leasing is going to be huge because you're locking in for extended periods of time.
What is interesting about retail is that it was declared dead in 2020 because everybody had to stay home and you couldn't go out. And a lot of retail businesses had some struggles. Down here in the South, however, most of us acted like there was no pandemic from about June of 2020 on. And so, but there still was an impact because all real estate is local, to your point. All financing is global, or at least national. And so even your local bank will have trouble financing a new retail center back in 2020 because the federal regulators are looking over and so what we have now in 2024 is a shortage of retail spaces in the good markets. And so, which is sort of what's going on with office. Yeah. Which is what you and I were talking about before, office. You got CNBC on in the background and listening to those guys. And they like said, office market's dead. It's dead. I mean, just close the book, put the cover on the coffin. It's dead. There are at least 6 subcategories of office. Is medical office dead? No, it's one of the most competitive markets I have ever tried to get into. And I want more because why is that? Because your doctor's not going remote and he's not coming to see you, and they have to have these big places to put their MRIs and things like that. And it's a wonderful business because they come in and they write nice 10, 15-year leases with escalators, and they're not particularly cost sensitive about all that. So, but that's office. That's included in office when they declare it dead. I'm in the first property we ever bought. I call this suburban office. Some people call it service retail, but I mean, it's all offices. But everybody in this building, they deal with their direct customers. They deal with consumers, dentists, insurance agents, stuff like that. But this is an office building. It's been full for years before the pandemic, throughout the pandemic, and it's still full there. The problem where office is having a problem is in downtown central business districts and the Class A. A lot of the cities have nice suburban office parks where they got their 6 or 8 story beautiful buildings and their marble bathrooms and stuff like that. But those tenants don't necessarily see their customers there, and the employees don't want to go back there. They want to work from home. Those are the problems. And people say, well, we'll just convert them to multifamily. No, you're not. The footprint is completely wrong. Multifamily, you got to have windows in every bathroom, in every bedroom, and bathrooms. And I mean, it's just, you're not going to do that. Yeah. Ultimately, I think office will pull out of that. But to your point again, all of that is also exceptionally local. There's not a big problem of office in Nashville. I don't think there's a big problem of office in Atlanta or Birmingham. And there's not in Huntsville, which is one of our markets, but there are in other markets around the country. So you just can't overgeneralize anything. And so your deal is made locally. Be aware of your local market at whatever property you're looking at.
Yeah, no, 100%. I know when you made mention of let's say the multifamily or the office conversion, let's say to units. Oh my goodness. I went to talking about like, let's say some of these office retail type spaces. I mean, I went to my optometrist 2 weeks ago, and it's like, there's literally one bathroom per floor of this probably 10-story building here in Honolulu. And I'm like, do you know how much it's going to take to replumb that building? Like the amount of like window space, and like, it's just not designed for it. Like it's cost prohibitive in that regard, let's say for that specific layout to retrofit it into, like, let's say serviceable multifamily units. You're almost better off
You're to
just
tear
getting
down the
one
whole
at this
building.
point. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
The infrastructure just doesn't work for it, let's say from the vast majority of buildings. I mean, maybe you've got a random kind of one-off and just spread out a little bit more and we can make something work. But otherwise, it's just, guys, gosh, I mean, I can't imagine trying to retrofit that building.
Yeah. It'll take a long time. It'll be expensive. And
At that point, you just go talk to Stuart, and he's going to point you in the right direction.
we'll put some storage in there. So,
Well, tell me a little bit, Stuart, like, what do you see as kind of a common challenge, let's say, working on like on the CPA side? Can you give us a hot tip or like a pitfall to avoid or something like that? Maybe for all the clients that you've seen. I mean, obviously you've got a lot of experience working as CFO, or you do CFO services or working with clients on the side. What are some quick tips maybe you can give us for our listeners?
don't overcomplicate it. What we just said, you make your money on tenant selection. You put the wrong tenant in the property and it's just going to cost you, not only from loss of rent, but what they may also potentially do to your property. I used to think that there was nothing more expensive than an empty property, and it's not true. Nothing more expensive than a property with the wrong tenant in it. Because not only will they not pay you, they might tear it up too. But don't let that intimidate you. It's not that difficult to identify the right tenant. There are sources out there, there are services, and while you're getting used to it, talk to other people who are doing it. The best resources I've ever used are just references. And there are some people who play games with references. They'll put their best friend's phone number down and as a reference. But so do your check and find out where they live, and then go find out who the management company is and call them directly yourself and find out about that tenant. And if most landlords will give an honest reference. And if they were asked to leave their last place, then go on to the next application.
Yeah. And if you don't, that's usually the thing too. It's like, if you're fearful about not having, let's say, adequate potential tenants, then it's just, okay, well, yeah, I've got to solve that problem. Then that's a marketing problem. Like, that's not necessarily an underwriting problem. I mean, there's a couple of different levers you can pull. Maybe it's pricing or something like that. Most times it's like, there's on any given market, hey, we just need to reach more people, because there's somebody out there looking for housing. There's a business out there looking for a new home. So you just got to be able to get in front of those eyeballs. And then of course, once you get them, then you screen them. Then you're able to kind of rank that.
Yeah. And I would say, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would say another tip, if you start getting into, and you can get into this business and not be the manager. Okay. So the worst thing you can probably do for yourself is try to be the manager, but you don't have time to do it. Because I became an accidental landlord once. After I had gotten rid of all my residential property, I ended up with another house, and just like, and I made all the classic mistakes again. It was a pain in my rear. And when we were interviewing tenants, it was just like, oh yeah, done. And at least 2 or 3 times in 5 years, I chose the wrong tenant. Now I should have been more patient. And fortunately, it wasn't a financial crisis to me, but it was bad management on my part. So if you feel like you don't have the time or will make the good decision, give it to a good quality manager. Yeah, it's going to cost you 10%, but that's better than making mistakes on tenant selection. They'll be experts at tenant selection.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's something I'll speak frequently with. I do a lot of networking. We host a local meetup, been to countless conferences. And a lot of times people are just like, well, I don't know where to start. Like, I don't know how to get started. And it's usually one of the first things I tell them was like, well, okay, you got to know yourself. How much bandwidth do you have? Like, to your point, like, how much bandwidth do I have to go out and to be actively involved? Because you don't necessarily have to be involved, guys. Like, if you're listening and you're just like, wow, I want to get into real estate investing. Okay, well, there's 1,000,001 different ways to make money real estate investment.
That's right.
What's the best fit for you as an investor? Are you like Stuart, where you're, hey, no, I'm a very busy professional. I've got solid income. I've got my own thing going on. Okay, then maybe something more passive is a good fit for you, right? Or maybe you do have the time and the skills to go and be more hands-on, right? Okay, well then know that about yourself, so that you can kind of help to select the right type of investing for you. You may just feel like, well, look, I've got more money than I've got time. Okay, perfect. You know what? I can guarantee you there's two people right here on this call that will gladly help you put that money to good work without necessarily you having to be involved, right? So you just have to know yourself, do some kind of introspective work and say, okay, well, what's my personality? What kind of skill set do I have? Take inventory, take stock of kind of what you have on hand. It's almost like a biblical principle. It's like, okay, well, look, what am I blessed with here? What kind of tools do I have? What kind of skills do I have? And how can I go and take that and apply that to, real estate investing?
Yeah. Managing your property directly is not going to make or break your real estate returns. Buying the property right and making sure you get the right tax structure. Those are the big things that will make or break the investment side. Just like I said, I'm a control freak. I just enjoy doing it. So if there's absolutely no reason you have to be picking the tenants yourself to make money in this business. So.
Some might call that he's a glutton for punishment, but no.
No doubt.
Well, awesome. Well, Stuart, this is the time of the show where we transition to what we call our fire round. Is that something you're interested in?
Sure. Let's go for it.
All right. Awesome. All right. First up, what is the best book that you recommend other than Carlton Sheet, or for a lot of our other listeners, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Do you have a great book recommendation or a couple of them?
I do love Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it is a little bit over recommended. And I love Dan Sullivan's Who Not How.
Yep.
As a CPA, ADD entrepreneur, there was just something about that book, and I've heard it in my entire career. You need to learn to delegate. For whatever reason, just reading that book, and it's not very long, just the statement of when you're thinking about the next thing that you have to do, stop thinking about how to do it. Think about who's going to do it, because you can't do it all. There's absolutely no scaling to doing everything yourself. Every entrepreneur struggles from this. It's been life-changing for me over the past 2 or 3 years. And it's uncomfortable because you got to trust somebody, and guess what? I've already had to fire a few of them, but that didn't mean that I did their job. I just found somebody else. And so hiring employees is a little bit like dating. You try people on and see what fits. But to me, it's been a transformative book for me.
Yeah, no, great book recommendation. And I would highly recommend that book. Second that recommendation also. I mean, it really takes you from kind of an employee mindset to like an entrepreneur mindset, to finding solutions, and it not always being, so you're talking a lot about like, well, hey, I'm a control freak, so I got to get in there and do that. That might be you also, but this really forces you to think, okay, well, again, if you've taken stock, you've taken inventory over what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. Focus on the strengths, hire out the weaknesses. Maybe books and the numbers and all that stuff is not your strength. Don't do that then, because you're going to screw them up. If you're going to put yourself in a world of hurt, waste a lot of time, a lot of money, and it's going to be a grind for you. Don't, give Stuart a call, like, or somebody similar, like to hire that portion out. Right. So that's an excellent book recommendation. I'll definitely recommend that to anybody, any of our listeners. All right. Next question. What would you consider your superpower to be?
I think I can size up a deal inside of about 5 minutes, assuming that I've got all the right data. Some of my favorite days when I'm looking for the next deal and I'm driving around town or whatever. And obviously you got some listings, and I can just look at them and determine whether or not I want to even look at the number. You can tell by the building how well it's been managed. You can almost guess whether the leases are under market or not. And so, I can size up a deal pretty quick, and I would call that my superpower. I don't know if that's analytical or just magical. So, and that's the part of the business I really enjoy.
Yeah. No, I think that comes with reps. It's like anything else. It takes seeing it, it takes doing it. And for most of our listeners, let's say, you're not going to be able to go and do that, but Stuart knows exactly what he's looking for, right? He knows his market. So then that gives him the ability to know his numbers. He's had the experience, let's say, with physical due diligence and financial due diligence to be able to, okay, I can look at that building. All right, Well, they don't have enough numbers, or they're probably not collecting enough rent to keep up with CapEx. And because, okay, this thing's looking pretty junky, or it's poorly run. There's a lot of different things that you can look at. But again, you don't know any of that if you don't know what asset class that you're looking at, how to evaluate it, and all that kind of stuff. That comes with reps. And that is a superpower, but it's a developed superpower. You too can do this, guys. But you've got to nail down what it is that you're actually trying to do, what you're trying to invest in. So no, I absolutely consider that a superpower. Very good. All right, next question. What is the biggest lesson that you've learned over your career thus far?
That's pretty easy. So the importance of reserves. And I gave my quick bio before. I said I had some hiccups back in 2009, and back then I was doing everything sort of on my own, and I was doing what some people call the equity ladder. And I'd buy this group of properties, and then I'd wait a year and refinance that and go buy this. All the while, I don't have any real cash in the whole game, and no real cash reserves. And I'm thinking I'm doing great because the banks love seeing me walk in the door, and they're lending me on every deal that I want to do. And so I must be doing it right. And yeah, all the while my CPA side is going, you might want to slow down. And I had a fairly major reversal in 2009, and all but for the lack of probably $200,000, $300,000 worth of reserves on a portfolio worth $25 million. And you just don't know what you don't know, and you don't know what's coming around the corner. Even back then, nobody was expecting Bear Stearns to go broke, and Lehman Brothers. And these were venerable names we all grew up with. And the world went through a major change, just like it did in 2020. Fortunately, we were much better positioned in 2020, and it actually ended up being pretty good opportunities for us. But you got to have reserves. You got to have cash sitting on the sideline in case of emergencies. And we build that into every deal that we do. And it probably pushes down, well, it definitely pushes down the returns just a tad, but it doesn't push them down as far as the return of not having the cash to make the mortgage payment in case something happens. So we've been building about 12 months of reserves, cash just sitting there. Our lenders like that. And so it was a hard lesson learned, but these days it's now a religion for me. So we just don't do a deal if we can't do the reserves.
And that's actually really powerful. That's a huge tip, guys, for whenever you're going into a deal, underwriting something, having those reserves available. If nothing else, you're training yourself to have some dry powder available for downturns in the market like this. Like there's opportunity out there, but you can't take advantage of them if you're over leveraged and you don't have any reserves, you don't have any capital, you don't have any dry powder sitting around. For one, to maintain your property, to handle debt service and all that kind of stuff, but to potentially go after other opportunities as well. So no, that's a huge one. And thank you for sharing even how far out you're going too, because the banks are looking at that, guys. When it's volatile, the lending environment is volatile, LTVs are lower right now. They may want to see stronger bank reserves from you, right? So keep that in mind. All right. And then for the busy working professional, somebody's trying to work towards financial freedom, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, we have a resource on our website called 5 Reasons You Should Be Investing Passively in Real Estate. And go out there, get that. It's free. But for the busy person who's dissatisfied with the stock market, I mean, real estate is the answer. I've already said it's the original asset class. Steve's alluded to that. It's more stable, which is another way to say it's not as volatile. I mean, what did the stock market do today? Yeah, I mean, I used to grow up thinking that the traders on Wall Street were a bunch of emotional ninnies because they'd say the stock market went up because of, and they give you this 3-word, which is probably not even the real reason the stock market went up and down, but the stocks are volatile. So the stability of real estate, the tax advantages of real estate that you can get by investing directly in real estate, you do not get those when you invest in a publicly traded REIT. Those tax advantages stay at the REIT level. They will not flow down to you. There's this thing called professional management. If you're too busy to do it, that's okay. You let professionals manage the property. And especially if you're a busy business professional or entrepreneur, you're running your own deal. You're running your own company and you're doing a great job of it. Hire a professional, but you're not trying to do your own heart surgery. You let professionals run your real estate. And so it's those kind of reasons. And then there's leverage. I mentioned before, everybody has access to get into real estate, even if it's just your home. But real estate is the most leverageable asset And for those who don't know, leverage means, it just means you can borrow money on it. If I've got $20,000 and I can put $20,000 in the market and watch $20,000 grow, or I could buy $100,000 piece of real estate and get the benefit of $100,000 growth. And then when I owe the bank, all I got to do is pay them back the $80,000. But I got all the growth on the $100,000. So that's what leverage does. It's a force multiplier on real estate.
Mhm.
And a lot of people think it's risky. And if you use too much leverage, it is risky. I mean, leverage is a tool. If you use it the wrong way, it is risky. If you use it the right way, it's an amazing thing to see what can happen with that. So those are the reasons that you should get into this game. There's only one advantage public markets have over real estate, and that's liquidity. And if you can, and if you're a proper investor and you've got cash reserves for emergencies and other things, then you can take another portion of your investments and put that into less liquid asset.
Yeah, very, very good. Very good. Well, sir, if our audience wants to reach out to you, get in touch with you, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Best way, and I do invite everyone, harvardgrace.com. You can find my calendar link there, and I do invite everyone and anyone who wants to book a call with me. I can talk real estate all day long. Go there, get some of our resources. They're free, and we will ask you for your email address. But I think I'm pretty proud of them. They're quality resources, and I think you'll find them helpful. And so, just harvardgrace.com, or if you remember my name, it's stewartheath.com. We'll take you to the same place.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Stuart, I really appreciate you jumping on with us, sharing your experience, your wisdom, your knowledge. I'm grateful. I know our audience is too. So I really appreciate you. We'll have to circle back with you. Or maybe the next time we're in Tennessee, we'll come hit you up and
absolutely. I'll buy you lunch.
There you go. Or if you guys are in the area, make sure you're reaching out to Stuart and picking his brain and talking shop. But no, thanks so much for coming on today. We'll see you next time. Aloha.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right. Another great episode here with Stuart Heath over at Harvard Grace. Like I said, lots of experience working on the financial end of things, working as CPA, of course, doing fractional CFO services through his company. And obviously they're raising capital as well, investing in other commercial assets. Lots of experience, wealth of experience here. And that's just something you can't get without spending time just working every day in the markets. You heard him. He mentioned he's a control freak, and that may describe some of us as well. Want to be more hands-on, but he also understands the power of leverage, and that's also leveraging other people's skill sets, other people's talents, other people's time. So that's a huge, huge takeaway for me and our conversation. Guys, if you're interested in investing with us, you can go to tricityequity.com to learn more. You can schedule a call with one of us on the team, connect with other like-minded investors in your local. Make sure that you're making plans to come out to our local meetup, Honolulu Multifamily and more. And we've also got our conference coming up. That's coming up quick, guys, July 10th through the 13th, out at the Four Seasons. Yeah, no matter what, you're going to enjoy being out there. It's an absolutely beautiful location, but the real benefit that you're going to get is being able to mix it up, network, learn from other entrepreneurs, business owners, real estate investors. I mean, you name it. It's such an awesome, awesome time. So make plans to be out there, get your tickets because they are going fast, and make plans to be out there. All right, guys, that's going to be it for today. If you guys are finding value in the podcast, please make sure that you're sharing it. We'd love a 5-star review, and we'd love you sharing the show so we can get the message out to more people to go out and take action, get some wins in their life, build some financial legacy, leave a financial legacy. And all right, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Aloha.